If you've spent any time at all looking for advice on how to run stills, I'm sure you've run into the idea that running the still slowly, less power, a slow drip is just better. But is that actually true? So just in case you haven't run into this, or for a bit of clarification, here's the general piece of advice. Run the still slower. Less heat going into it, less product coming out of the spout, and this comes in a bunch of different forms. You know, turn the power down. You only want a drip, drip, drip coming off the spout. You hear it in a bunch of different ways, but the general idea is that by doing so, we're gonna create a cleaner spirit and therefore a better spirit. And in my mind, there's two things to kind of check on here first. One, does it actually do anything? And then two, if it does do something, is it actually better? So let's have a look at that today. I think let's just talk about pot stills today, because in my mind, that is hopefully, I haven't tried this yet, we're gonna find out, hopefully gonna illustrate the point a little bit better. And luckily for us, right over there, I have a still running. So let's go have a look. Bam! Irish whiskey stripping run in progress. Don't worry, there'll be a full video on the Irish whiskey, of course. But I thought this would be an excellent time to be able to just actually test this and see what happens. Here are the power controllers for the still, and right now I'm running on around about 3.8 kilowatts of power, and this is what the offtake looks like coming off the spout. We're also sitting at right around 30% ABV on the Parrot. Let me drop this down, and let's do something silly. Let's go down to like 1 kilowatt, 1,000 watts, and see what happens to the ABV. With the input power dropped way down, the offtake speed's gonna drop down as well, obviously, and that's happened. It's gone all the way down to like just a drip. So what I did is emptied the Parrot right out, let it fill all the way back up at the new speed, and took a reading, and lo and behold, we're up a touch over 40%. So that's like a solid 10% difference. That's crazy. What on earth is going on here? All right, the power has been cranked back up to almost 4 kilowatts, so I can actually get through the stripping run in a reasonable amount of time. But what is going on? Why did the ABV change so much? Potentially a couple of different things, but I think the main culprit, and I think it accounts for almost all of this difference, is passive reflux. So we all know that the vapor is coming up through this column, and I don't have anything in here. It's completely empty, no packing, no plates, no nothing. But there is a whole bunch of surface area, and this is metal. So it is a good conductor. I can feel the heat coming off it from around here, which means, and if that heat is conducting and radiating away, it means that essentially it's cooling the vapor on the inside. So this whole column is going to be lined with little droplets of the spirit that we're distilling running back down. And that is going to interact with the vapor going back up. With the higher power input we have at the moment, the vapor's rushing past, and there's so much vapor in that column that the small amount of condensed liquid trickling down the outside is such a small percentage of the overall system, I guess you would say. It's not doing a whole lot. But when we turn the power way back down and there's only a small amount of vapor flowing up through this still, the interaction of vapor to droplets in terms of the percentage of total vapor goes way up. The vapor going up likes to pull the more volatile chemicals out of the liquid, and the liquid going down tends to take the less volatile chemicals out of the vapor. So it's almost like getting an extra little mini distillation in the column. It's not very efficient. We have better ways of doing that, but it is going to happen. ZBiotic's pre-alcohol drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to help tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's responsible for making you feel rough the next morning. Pre-alcohol creates an enzyme to help break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics the first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best the next morning. Click the link in the description to get 15% off at checkout with a no questions asked money back guarantee. It took 4 stripping runs in total to get all of the wash processed. That has all gone into the pot here. I did let a little bit of the wash go into that as well, which is why it looks so murky, and this still is full to the tippy top. So we've got the little sight glass here just to make sure nothing crazy is happening with the puke, although being low wines, I think we're good. Over to the line arm, which is empty as well, and to the condenser. Because this is an Irish whiskey and I want it to be more on kind of the approachable, sweet, fruity side of things, I thought adding in some extra copper before we get to the condenser isn't a terrible idea. And it just has the added benefit of having the condenser being closer down to the table, not hovering up here somewhere. The power's on, making sure we're in manual mode at 100% for warm up. The water is all connected and ready to go. And now you can see in the sight glass here, we're starting to get some hazy, misty action, and this is just starting to warm up. So I'm gonna let it go for maybe another minute or two, and then I'll drop the power down to about 70%, and then we can adjust from there to settle into collecting the 4 shots. Why am I doing this again? We've just done this. Well, I want to see if the difference between fast and slow on a smaller still like this is the same, more, less, I don't know. And I also want to be able to actually taste the product and try and assess whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, basically. All right, team, I'm well and truly into this run now. We've dealt with 4 shots and heads. This pot is about yay full into hearts. We're well and truly into the middle of the run. It's currently sitting at 70% ABV, and this is my offtake speed. This is maybe a little bit slower than I would normally run a still like this, and the reason I'm running it a little bit slower is because this is kind of based on an Irish whiskey, and I'm not triple distilling it, I'm only double distilling it. And the thinking is that running it a little bit slower is going to get a slightly higher ABV and be slightly cleaner. But let's actually test that idea, shall we? So, let me double check. And find a light source that's far enough away. Maybe 71, 70.5, something like that. We're currently running at 54% power. So let's crank that right up first and we'll see what happens to the ABV as we drop off. But actually, what I need to do right now is I'm going to take 3 samples. 1 at the speed that I think I should be running it at, 1 significantly faster, 1 significantly slower, and then I'll taste all 3 next to each other. We'll see what happens. Let me switch over to another glass. This is going to be our standard kind of speed sample. And this one's going to be just a transition jar to make sure nothing weird happens as the speed is changing. We let it settle in, took some transition spirit, and this is the speed we're at now. So let's take another reading. It's been running for a few minutes now. Hopefully it's kind of settled out at its new kind of equilibrium ABV. Okay, so not as big of a change as the big still. It's dropped down to, I'm gonna say 66. So what's that? Like 5% ABV difference? Now let's do the total opposite. I'm gonna drop this down to, I don't know what power it's gonna be. I'm gonna pick a power percentage where it's just kind of dripping. All right, this has settled into a nice little rhythm now. So let's test that again. 76. Okay, so another 5% up. Of course, I've just realized that when we were on the big still, we were comparing super fast to super slow, and that was a range of about 10% ABV. So it turns out, even midway on a spirit run on a different still, going from quite fast to quite slow is about the range of 10%. So yeah, it looks like it tracks. It's nice to prove to yourself sometimes that the theory you think you understand is actually the way things work. Let's taste and smell these side by side and see if I can tell any difference. So on this side we have the slowest drip, or the higher ABV, the speed I was actually running the still at for this Irish whiskey, and way up at, what was it, 97% power, maybe almost double the speed of offtake. A roughly 5% ABV difference between all three, and look at me, dear Lord, I'm being all fancy, I've got a spoon. Okay, this is a gradient. These are really quite different. This is right in the middle between the two. Not surprising. But what is the difference? First, 10% ABV is a big difference. And I can definitely sense the difference in ABV between the three. Obviously, between this one and this one, it's kind of night and day. And between the one in the middle and each on either side of it is still quite noticeable. The other thing that is different is it gets cleaner as we go higher in ABV. What do I mean by that? Just straight up less flavor and less mouthfeel, less body, less kind of velvetiness on the tongue. So this one has a deeper, more intense isn't the right word, the grain flavors are bolder and slightly erring on the side of the flavors I would expect to see later in the run. So there's more of kind of the caramel and the chocolate in this than the other two, specifically compared to the top one. So if all of that is true and my senses aren't just lying to me, or I don't have a giant confirmation bias going on here, why don't we just run super slow? Isn't clean better? No, no it's not. Because if cleaner was better, pot distillation would only be a thing for people that couldn't afford plates, right? Pot distillation is a good thing. It gives us more flavor. It gives us more body. Yes, it does allow some, I guess, grungier flavors into the mix. But then more often than not, you're going to age it in a barrel and those grungy things kind of turn into the magic over time. In my mind, this also perhaps lines up with the conventional wisdom of running slower near your cut points. The idea being that if you slow the still down and make it more precise, I guess, in its distillation, because it's distilling at a higher ABV, it'll be separating compounds more. If you slow your still down near the heads at the beginning of the run, until you get into the hearts, you may be able to collect more hearts. And the same down near the tails. If you slow the still down again, when you get to the tails, you kind of get another crack at the good stuff that's still mixed in with the tails. Does that make sense? Just keep in mind too that in my mind, the blurring, the smearing between heads and hearts and tails is kind of part of the beauty of double pot distillation. That's what allows us to kind of go hunting for flavor in the margin between hearts and tails for something like a whiskey. So let's get on to my personal take on this. And this isn't, I can't say this is true. It's just the way I think about it and my opinion on it. So if you have a different opinion, that's totally, completely cool. I think this is like most things in distilling, where it's just another lever you can pull. It's just another thing, another variable you can change to change the outcome of the spirit you're going for. If you are double pot stilling something, you know, like, let's call it a moonshine. You're going to drink it white, you're going to drink it tomorrow. Going slower might not be a terrible thing to kind of clean it up a little bit more. If you're planning on barrel aging it, like I am, running somewhere in between here is probably a better idea. You're going to get, in my opinion, a little bit more flavor and definitely more mouthfeel. You're going to get that thicker, creamier, oilier, velvetier style spirit. And I guess, once again, often distilling, when we find one of these levers that we can push or pull to change a variable and change the outcome, I think a good default position is splat bang in the middle. And that's kind of where the general internet recommendations fall, I think, on this. For a still the size that I'm running with like a thin pencil lead, relatively consistent, maybe breaking every now and again, kind of stream coming off the spout is what people generally recommend for pot distillation on a still this size. And after testing it and after tasting it, I think I can agree with that. Obviously, run your still however you want. If you're one of those people that just swears by drip, drip, drip for like 24 hours straight, all power to you, man. I'm on board with your dedication. Try using a plate. Hell, use 2 plates. And you'll probably get a pretty similar, if not even cleaner, result. And on the flip side of things, if you're one of those people that just says screw that and you run flat out the whole time, if you're barrel aging product and letting it sit for 6 years, you're probably fine. If you're planning on drinking it as moonshine tomorrow, maybe slow down a little bit. You might find some advantage to it. Anyway, team, I hope you found that helpful. I hope you found that interesting. If you have anything to say, please jump into the comments section. Have a nice discussion about this, folks. None of the fighting, just helping each other out would be great. I'll catch you next time. See ya.